Hey, what is up, everyone? Hope you guys are having a great day today. Today I actually wanted to talk about Tesla's Autopilot and the fact that I think that it doesn't seem to be improving after many years of Tesla working on this advanced driver assistant feature. I have the latest version. It is 2022.44.30. This is version 11. And I installed this one a few days ago, and it seems like Autopilot has actually regressed. So I live in the state of Arizona, and out here we have two seasons, hot and hotter. All right, so right now we are in January. It's this is our version of summer, where it cools down and people can go outside and not be scorched to death by the heat. But even though the place that I live way off in the West Valley, past Surprise, so out in northern Buckeye. Out this way, there's a whole lot of nothing. Meaning that it doesn't snow, and I should say that we did get a few snowflakes the other day, but it doesn't stick, of course. And what I'm trying to say is that there's not a whole lot of weather out here that's going to impede Autopilot from being able to perform at its best. Okay, it occasionally rains, so the cameras are, for the most part, always clear. The roads are always clear. The road that I'm driving on right now is perfectly clear. There's no potholes. The lines are clearly marked. But for some reason, Autopilot continues to have issues, which it doesn't make any sense, right? Arizona is the perfect place for companies to try out their, full self-driving, automatic driving, whatever you want to call it, software, which is one of the reasons why Google has been, trialing Waymo, driverless taxis out this way, because, the roads are always clear. It's always sunny. I should say about 90% of the time it's always sunny. Occasionally we get hazy days, but this is a great state in order to trial self-driving cars. But it just seems like Tesla, they make these really great strides, and they always take multiple steps back. And the issue with that, from a consumer perspective, is that you never know if you're going to get consistent reliability out of Tesla Autopilot, right? Now, Tesla doesn't market it, brand Autopilot as a type of feature that is only made for the highway. Okay, they also don't brand Autopilot as it's useful for, city streets, which you can use Autopilot pretty much anywhere. Okay, the road that I'm on right now, there must be some type of like a geo-fenced area where on the road that I'm on right now, I can't go above a certain speed limit. So the speed limit is 55. At most, I can go 60. When you get on the expressway, you can go far above the posted speed limit. Okay, Arizona, they drive pretty fast out here. The road that I'm on, even though it says 55, my neighbors are easily doing 80 down this road consistently. Every once in a while, we'll see a police officer out this way, but they're going faster than you. They're passing you up doing 80. Okay, I've seen people pulled over on this road a couple times in the 2 years that I've lived here. So for the most part, out this way it's safe, and cops, they leave us alone. Okay, it's quiet out this way. Now, with that said, I really have to start to question Tesla essentially taking away radar as a way to gauge the distance for objects that are in front of you, on the side of you, etc. Tesla has gone towards the route of using cameras as a way to be able to judge distances. Okay, and of course they're doing that for saving a few bucks so that they don't have to install these radars. But then Tesla also said that they did that because you can have issues where the camera is seeing one thing, but then the radar is telling you another. And so you have to be able to account for those variances where you have conflicting information. The previous director of Tesla's efforts I think his name was Carpathy, he also said in a podcast with Lex Friedman that one of the reasons why they also got rid of radar is because when it's manufactured, they have different consistency. So the hardware between the same manufacturer is not always saying the same thing, and because you have those variances, it's really hard to program that to be consistent. So they figured, well, let's just take radar out of the equation altogether. And so now what Tesla does is they measure distance using this 2D video, which they are able to convert into a 3D image with different sensors, right? And they've showed that off with different versions of full self-driving. Well, all that fancy shit that they have is not working, and that's the problem, okay? I don't think I've ever said on my channel before that if you look at what cruise control is, right? Cruise control is nothing more than a feature that's been on cars since, I think, 1949. And all it does is it sets your car to a set speed limit. So if you're doing 65 and I'm busy dicking around in the car looking for something, you're yelling at your kids in the back seat, you're playing the radio too loud, you're looking at the side of the window, cruise control does not care, okay? It's going to continue to drive in whatever direction that you have your hands on the steering wheel. So that means that if it comes up on a car in front of you, it doesn't give a shit. It's going to keep going until it rams into the back of that car, okay? It's also not going to keep you centered in your lane. So it's going to be very easy for you to lose control of the vehicle, and it's just going to keep going until it eventually crashes or you turn off and disengage cruise control, okay? Now that feature has been on cars for quite a long time. Now Autopilot has a bunch of safety redundancies in place to prevent that. But the issue is that they don't behave consistently, okay? So if I'm driving on this perfectly clear road in Autopilot, it'll just randomly slam on the brakes, okay? Now, thankfully, because there's not a whole lot of people out this way, you know, I've been able to essentially let the car figure out on its own what the hell it needs to do. And in some cases, it'll go from, you know, 65 miles an hour to 45 on its own. Like I'll just sit there, you know, as I'm, you know, going forward and trying to let the car figure out what to do on its own. It'll go all the way down to 45 just like that, okay? If there was somebody behind me, that's an accident. All right? People don't always give each other those proper following distances. So from my understanding of why this happens, where the car will just, you know, phantom brake is what they call it, is because sometimes, you know, again, from the previous versions, when it had radar, is that it was receiving conflicting information that, hey, we're about to impact something, slow down. In this case, what's happening is that there are shadows that are being, you know, casted on the road from the vegetation on the side, and that results in the car thinking that it's about to impact an object, okay? So this idea of using video to be able to judge distances, it doesn't work. And then on top of that, for some of the ultrasonic sensors that were in the door previously, again, Tesla had to create ultrasonic sensors that were capable of being able to transmit their signal through metal, okay, in order to get an actual image and be able to accurately judge distance. They've taken that out of the newest versions of their cars, and then they're going to use cameras in order to judge that distance. Now, it sounds great in theory, and I'm sure that it works, but the problem is it doesn't work consistently now. When you have a vehicle that weighs 3,500 pounds, 4,000 pounds, 5,000 pounds, and it's traveling down the road at 55, 65 miles an hour, you are essentially a missile, okay? You're driving a vehicle that if you lose control, you can kill somebody and you can kill yourself, okay? It happens all the time. This idea of human beings driving has been the worst experiment in the history of mankind. We are shitty drivers, okay? Let's get that through, all right? We are such terrible drivers that there are multiple industries that have essentially sprung up because we crash a lot, all right? There's lots of repair shops across America that earn good business because we crash a lot. There's an entire auto insurance industry that has sprung up to that we pay a fee monthly, and if we crash, they'll help us repair our car without having to shell out thousands of dollars all at once, okay? There's an entire supplier side industry that they supply OEM parts as well as aftermarket parts so that we can essentially fix our vehicles after we crash them, okay? So we're shitty at driving. And this idea that we need self-driving cars that are capable of handling all these situations, I agree with that 100%. But at the way Tesla is working, where they do these leaps forward and then they make another deployment and it makes the software worse, there has to be a completely different methodology of deploying updates to self-driving software and of course for Autopilot, because not being able to have consistent behavior from a feature that is essentially taking control of your vehicle for only fractions of what it is that you're doing. Obviously, you know, Autopilot isn't going to be making left or right turns for me. It's not going to be stopping at red lights for me, so I am in control. But that shouldn't give Tesla you know, the ability to say, well, we've made a deployment and, you know, there's been a regression, so if you get into an accident, that's your fault, right? And, you know, I've defended the company in the past with some of their Autopilot feature updates, but, you know, considering I live in an area, so you know, again, I live in a state where I shouldn't be having issues with Autopilot. The conditions are perfect. I mean, it can't get any more perfect than driving in Arizona. This is obviously a small rant, but, you know, I definitely think there needs to be some additional oversight on these semi-autonomous driving features. Autopilot, Blues Cruise, whatever the hell, you know, Ford calls theirs, the Super Cruise. I have issues with, you know, Super Cruise and Blue Cruise as well. You know, that's Ford and Chevrolet's version of Autopilot. You know, I know that they have interior cameras that will watch your eye movement, and if you turn away for a fraction of a second, it'll ding you and, you know, completely disengage the semi-autonomous driving features, which is great. But the fact that they tell you that you can actually take your hands off of the steering wheel and a system that is barely level 3, if that, I think is just, it's bonkers, you know? Because even Autopilot will, like, you know, I've been describing, on a perfect road, it'll just randomly do a bunch of dumb shit. And Blue Cruise and Super Cruise, even though they have LiDAR, it's not a perfect system. So I honestly don't know where Tesla goes from here. I work in software as well. At the moment, I'm a data analyst, but I work on software teams as well. And, you know, I get this whole thing with software where there's always trial and error. You iterate fast and you fail fast. I get that, right? In many ways, it's worked for Tesla. But when you're putting out software, right, coupled together with hardware, that it doesn't work consistently, that's pretty bad. I honestly have no idea. I don't know if my cameras need to be recalibrated. I don't think so. But the system isn't performing to, the best of its abilities, which is really shameful, because it certainly seems like there are other companies out there, Ford and Chevrolet, that are putting out systems that work reliably enough that the government gives them the go-ahead, that they can advertise for people to actually take their hands off of the steering wheel while they're driving an F-150 that probably weighs over 4,500 pounds, weighs more if it's actually filled, which they're not. Okay, truck drivers, people that drive trucks, they never ever have anything in the back of those goddamn beds. I really don't like agreeing with the National Highway Transportation Safety Authority, NHTSA, I think is what it's called. But in this case, I think there needs to be a lot more validation that happens for Tesla to make a release to Autopilot. Okay, now for full self-driving, that's its own separate story, because it has a lot more functionality that's available. But in this particular case, with Autopilot being a standard feature on many Teslas, like at one point Autopilot wasn't actually a standard feature, but my understanding was that you could actually pay for it later on after you purchased it. But so Autopilot isn't standard on all Teslas, but for Teslas that have it as standard, I think there needs to be a lot more rigorous validation that happens when it actually does get updated. Okay, there should be no points in time where Autopilot regresses in terms of how it functions. Like if you take away features, but the platform remains consistent, where I can engage Autopilot, it remains centered, it'll slow up or slow down depending on the speed limit. Like, that's amazing functionality. I love the fact that Autopilot, its ability to maintain its lane even on sharp curves, right? Like, it's better at doing that than it is for other systems. And so I like that it does that, but the fact that it can't go in a straight line with some shadows, yeah. If there were other pieces of technology out there that regressed, they would be recalled immediately, right? We've seen, big auto manufacturers like Ford and Chevrolet, they've been putting out trash on the automotive market for decades, okay? And whenever they do something wrong with hardware, it'll immediately get recalled. But that's never ever the case with Autopilot, right? Like, Autopilot could just randomly be slamming on the brakes and there's no recall. Nothing ever happens. So why would a company improve if there was never ever a reason for them to actually improve? Other than to say, hey, we're making the system better, we promise, but then, it gets decent for a little bit, but then it's almost like it tricks you, it's like a false sense of security, where, 1 minute this feature is working great, and then the next thing you know, it's just randomly slamming on the brakes. So I'm sure Autopilot, there's going to be another update that comes out that'll fix it, but then the question is does the next version make it worse again, right? So you don't have confidence that Autopilot is going to work. I would be more than happy with, I don't know, if Tesla were to say, hey, we're going to take away this feature in Autopilot, but the platform is going to remain consistent in how it's used and how it functions. Okay, that's great. That's what matters most when it comes to, vehicle technology, is that it remains consistent, that it's reliable. Consistency and reliability are extremely important when you're driving a vehicle that weighs thousands of pounds at 65, 75, 80 miles per hour, right? So this is just my small rant on Autopilot. I enjoy my Tesla quite a bit. I am going to be purchasing a Cybertruck. I live in Arizona. There's trucks everywhere. But it's certainly one of those odd states where, you start driving an electric truck, you might catch some shit, but that's okay. We'll deal with that. But yeah, it would be nice if Tesla got their shit together on Autopilot, because it's pretty embarrassing, to be honest with you. It's embarrassing that this company with so many extraordinarily brilliant people can continue to make things worse, make these big leaps again to make it great again. I know that's a funny statement, make it great again, but then somehow fuck it up and make it worse again. So yeah, just my small rant. Again, Autopilot needs some help. Traffic aware cruise control also has the same issues with phantom braking, so that also needs to be fixed. So yeah. So my feedback to Tesla is, please get your shit together, because you're going to end up killing somebody again with Autopilot. All right, everyone. I appreciate you listening to my rant. See ya. Take care. Bye.